Good evening, everyone, and welcome to week 6 of our SD46 Parenting Through Difficult Times series. I'm Sarah Joseph, and I empower people with tangible tools to help strengthen relationships. And this week, we're talking about how to turn mistakes into opportunities to learn. So let's get right into it. So I thought that we would just take a moment before we really jump into talking about changing changing mistakes into opportunities to think about what messages we learned as children about making mistakes. So I just want you to take a moment to close your eyes and to really think back to when you were a child and what it was like when you made a mistake, when you were misbehaving or did something wrong. What were the things that you were told or that you heard from teachers, from adults, from your parents? I just want you to sit in that for a moment and really pull up some of the feelings that you might have felt after hearing those things, and pull up some examples maybe for yourself to hold on to through this conversation, through this presentation about what what messages, what things did you hear? What were adults saying to you when you made mistakes, when you got in trouble, when you were misbehaving? What were the words that they were saying? And what was the message behind the words that you took in? We're always learning and making decisions, right? No matter which way the outcome happens, right? When we make mistakes, um, we're, if we're, it doesn't really matter which way the response comes. We're going to learn something from it, right? We're gonna learn. There's going to be an outcome to our behavior, but also we're going to learn something from the way that people respond to us. So, what did you learn about making mistakes as a child or throughout your life? And what did you learn about yourself when you made those mistakes from the way that people responded to you? What did you internalize about yourself? Children are always making decisions about themselves, whether they're good or bad, whether they're capable or incapable. They're making decisions about other people, whether they're encouraging or discouraging, whether they're kind or mean, whether they're fair. They're also making decisions about the world. Is the world a safe place or is it a threatening place? Is it somewhere that they can thrive or do they just need to survive and get by? And they're making decisions about what they need to do. What do they need to do to thrive, right? Or to just merely survive? They're also making decisions about how they can protect themselves, right? How they can protect themselves from enduring the wrath that sometimes is brought down when they make mistakes, um, or protecting themselves from feeling the way that they felt um, after receiving harsh criticism or judgment, shame, or blame. Right? I just want to go back to this for a second. It doesn't feel done. I just want us to really think about this for a minute because everybody makes mistakes. And often the way that we treat children and the way that we were treated as children was that was by being blamed and shamed and punished when we made a mistake. Um, and often the things that we have learned from that, we learn to about ourselves, right? We take that in and we think, I'm a bad person for doing those things, or I'm not capable, or I'm lazy, or I always mess up, or I'm never going to get it right, right? And those are messages that we hear other people saying, and then we interpret and we make it more personalized. And that's how the brain works, how the ego works. Um, and we often layer those messages on ourselves, right? I'm not worthy, I don't deserve love, I'm not capable, I'm not powerful. All of those messages, I see adults in my counseling practice who have those messages ingrained in them from childhood, because the adults in their life thought that they were doing children a service. They were helping children learn to do better by using fear, by using shame, by using punishment. And what the children learned from that was how to people please, how to avoid conflict, how to sneak around and hide, how to not be accountable for their mistakes, how to be defensive, um, how to think of themselves as not being worthy, how to avoid risk, how to not step into the light or into themselves fully for fear that they would be shamed or blamed or punished. Um, yeah. So that's a bit heavy to start start us off, right? But I think it's really important that we take into consideration where these thoughts have come from. Um, and I'm not saying, I'm not blaming our parents. I'm not blaming adults. I'm saying that we can do better. We know better now, and we can do better, right? Jane Nelson, the founder of Positive Discipline and the author of all the Positive Discipline books, she says, "Where did we ever get the crazy idea that in order to make kids do better, first we have to make them feel worse?" I love that quote so much, because we do better when we feel better, right? So what would it be like if a child made a mistake, and instead of being scared of what the result might be, what the response from an adult might be, they heard, "You made a mistake. That's fantastic. What can we learn from it?" Right? So the mistakes are opportunities. They're opportunities for us to show our kids that we're on their side. They're opportunities for us to connect. They're opportunities for us to teach a lesson. They're opportunities for us to see that imperfection is beautiful, for us to have the courage to be imperfect, to teach what it looks like to take responsibility for our actions, to apologize, to make things right. Mistakes have a huge amount of opportunity behind them. And so often we waste that opportunity. And to teach so many life lessons, to connect more deeply, to help our children see that we are on their side and that we are able to be there to help them through challenging times. We are there to help them find solutions to problems. We are there to help them fix mistakes. That we are going to work with them instead of against them, or instead of making them feel guilty or wrong or punishing them or getting angry at them for something that they have done. Um, I love this quote. I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. And that was by Thomas Edison. He made 10,000 mistakes before he invented the light bulb. 10,000. But each of those mistakes taught him something, right? And I think that this is a brilliant example of, of what children need to learn, of what a mistake can help us do, right? How we can use mistakes to build our knowledge, to make us better, to help us find the answer. Now, children need to be exposed to the value of mistakes daily, and learn from them in a safe environment, right? It needs to be okay to make mistakes. And when it's okay to make mistakes, then children can learn that mistakes are opportunities to learn, right? They can learn all those things that the mistakes give us the opportunity to learn from. So one of the things that I think is amazing, I haven't been doing this with my family, but I certainly want to be. I think it's a good thing to start now. Many families have found it really helpful to invite everyone to share a mistake of the day and what they learned from it during dinner time. I think this is such a lovely practice. And I'm definitely going to instigate that at my next dinner. I'd love to learn. I'd love to hear from you guys how you guys are making mistakes, turning them into opportunities to learn, opportunities to connect. As I said, children do better when they feel better. So if we can give them opportunities to feel better after they make a mistake, they're going to do better next time, right? I want you to think of yourself in this situation where you are at work and your boss is, coming down on you pretty hard because you didn't finish the report on time, or you lost a customer, and you know that he has the power to fire you, and he's coming down pretty hard on you about the client that you lost or the customer that you lost, and you're feeling really bad about yourself. Now, when you're feeling bad about you, and you're feeling bad about the place you work, and you're feeling bad about your boss, are you going to be encouraged to work harder, to do better? Are you going to be inspired and encouraged to be your best? Or are you going to start thinking, this place sucks? He's so unreasonable. He's so unfair. He hates me. I can't do this job. And are you going to start looking for somewhere else to work? Right? That might not happen after one mistake, after one time of being berated by your boss. But if it continues, then your morale is going to drop and drop and drop and drop, right? You don't start feeling better and doing a better job after being berated or blamed or shamed, right? Or punished. That raise that you got, that bonus, you're not getting it now because you didn't do that right. Right? So when we think about it in that way, it makes total sense. And we can see that when we're using blame and shame and punishment with our kids when they make mistakes, they're going to feel bad. And they're going to start thinking about, how this family sucks. And my parents aren't fair. And I don't want to be here. And how can I get out? How can I go spend more time outside with my friends or get away from them, right? And when we're thinking about kids in elementary school, I want to say that now is the foundation. Now is the time that we that we lay the foundation that we are the safe place, that we are the place to turn for help, that we are here to protect and to help and to be on your side. We lay that foundation while they're in elementary school so that when they get into high school and they are exposed to more scary things, right? Like drugs and alcohol and sex and all the things that us parents who don't have teens yet are petrified of. When they get to that place, we've laid a solid foundation of closeness, of connection, of trust, of teamwork and safety, right? Yeah. And although as they become teens, they are going to push away from us some. That's just normal teenage. I need to learn, I need to take risks and become more independent. The brain is wired for that, and that is normal. That even though that happens, they're going to have us to fall back on. They're going to be able to bring problems to us because we've been there before. I saw this wonderful quote that said, if you want your children to bring their problems to you when they're older, when they're teens, you need to listen to the small stuff when they're young, right? Because we're building that foundation. We're showing them through action that we can be here, that we can listen, that we can be a safe place to reveal mistakes, right? So often a misbehaving child is a discouraged child. This is what we believe in positive discipline, that a child who is misbehaving is feeling disconnected, is feeling discouraged, and that if we are able to encourage them through connection, that often we can encourage better behavior. And I think this is really important to know when we're talking about mistakes, because as we often blame and shame and punish around mistakes, what happens, as we were just talking about, is children start feeling more and more discouraged. And so then what happens is we start seeing more and more misbehavior. So I want you to think about these questions. And I think this is a good kind of last class wrap up reminder about maybe some of the things that could be happening, and things that we've talked about in the past. So if your child is misbehaving, I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions. Is it possible my child feels disconnected from me? Is this behavior a cry for some connection time? Now remember, I can't remember what week it was in, but back at the beginning of this class, we talked about how important connection is, and that children often act out to gain connection, not attention, right? Because what they're looking for is actually to connect with you. So ask yourself, is it possible my child feels disconnected from me? How can I bring some connection in right now? Second question, is this developmentally appropriate behavior for my child's developmental age? So just a side note, not developmental and chronological age may not be the same. Okay, so just because your child is 6 doesn't mean that they have the ability, the developmental ability to act like a 6-year-old. You know your child best though. And does my child's lack of skills to navigate this situation on their own? Right? So think about your child's developmental age, and can they navigate this situation on their own? And I would suggest that most kids in elementary school cannot navigate very many situations on their own when it comes to making mistakes, feeling like they have wronged somebody, feeling like they might get in trouble. That's going to send them into fight or flight pretty darn quick. So you likely will need to help them navigate the situation. They are still learning. these little people of ours, they are, I think I said it before, like aliens, right? They have come to this earth. They do not know our customs or our ways. They do not know how to respond or react to certain situations. And we need to help them navigate every situation that comes up if we want them to know how to do it the way we would do it. I was going to say appropriately or properly, but really every family has their own values. And so this is how you teach your children your family values, right? If your family values doing work with 100% effort, right? Then, and your child comes home with, a 20% on a math test, then this is your opportunity to teach them about putting 100% effort into what they do, right? And so you can help them navigate that situation. Look at it as an opportunity to teach them about one of your family values and help them figure out how to retake that test or how to do better on the next test. The third question is my child having a hard time managing their emotions? And can I support them in regulating? Now, we talked about this in great detail in the first week about managing emotions and helping co-regulate somebody. Super important whenever we're dealing with teaching a lesson, correcting behavior, or solving a problem, that we ensure that everybody's lid is on tight, that the wise old owl is on its perch, that nobody is in fight or flight mode anymore, that everybody has calmed down, right? Before we move into that mode. So if your child's misbehaving, please ask yourself those questions. And think just, there's often there's some other reasons why kids misbehave, right? Like they didn't sleep well. Had that today. My daughter didn't sleep well last night, and today was a hell of a day with her attitude, right? Now I know she wasn't purposely being lippy or giving attitude. It was hard to handle, let me tell you. It was pushing my buttons. But of course, she wasn't purposely misbehaving, right? She wasn't trying to manipulate with her attitude. She was simply having a hard time managing her emotions. And so what could I do to help her regulate, right? And so yeah, recognizing that, sleep, not eating, a global pandemic, having a smaller window of tolerance, having a big transition or change in your life is going to affect the way that we behave, is really helpful. And when we start thinking about misbehavior in these ways, it often softens our reactions. It often helps us respond with more care and curiosity, kindness and compassion, than instead of moving into a punitive approach, right? Okay, so mistakes are made often because of those things that we were just talking about, but often because of lack of training. So we haven't taken the time to train our kids how to solve a problem or to, I don't know, there's a million things that we haven't taken the time to train them on, right? Like maybe it's just a negotiation or how to apologize, or a mistake could be made because we haven't taken the time to train our child on how to pour milk properly out of a full jug, and now it's been spilled everywhere, right? Mistakes are made because of gap in skills. Maybe our 3-year-old just really isn't capable of pouring milk yet, or our 10-year-old doesn't know how to fry an egg, right? Or to not put too much soap into the laundry because we haven't taken the time to train, or because there's just a gap in skills, right? Sometimes we make mistakes because of they're accidental, right? I tripped someone by accident. I knocked over my glass onto your homework by accident. Um, I said something at a turn, right? There's lots of mistakes that are made by accident, and there's some mistakes that are made on purpose. And I like to think of those mistakes as just a mistake in thinking, right? So there's mistakes that are made deliberately. I thought about it, you hurt my feelings, and I wanted to get back at you, right? Or I planned out how to do this thing that got me into trouble, like steal a chocolate bar from the store, or I planned out how to sneak out of the house, or how to get more screen time, right? Now, those things may have been planned, thought out, deliberate acts, but they can still be thought of as mistakes. It was a mistake in my thinking. It was a mistake in my choices, right? I made a bad choice, and sometimes we all make bad choices, right? So when we talk about mistakes in these ways, can you see how it changes your perspective on what needs to be done, right? It helps lead us away from punitive thinking, away from shaming and blaming. You did it on purpose. You thought about this, and you deliberately decided to take your iPad and have more screen time after I told you that screen time was over, right? Now, I can see that that was a poor choice and it was a mistake, right? And so, because I can see that it was a poor choice and a mistake, I may be able to use it as an opportunity to learn, right? To talk about consequences and outcomes of behavior, talk about making poor choices and how they come about, talk about being accountable for your actions. So remember that the primary goal of all children is that belonging and significance. And we talked about that a lot in that making family a priority, making family time a priority video that we did a few weeks ago. And so it's really important before we correct behavior that we connect. So connect before you correct is going to help you both feel calmer, connected, and able to think rationally, right? And able to communicate better, and like you're on the same team. Okay. So a lot of parents stumble over this because they feel like they need to withhold connection, withhold affection when their child has done something wrong. And this is saying the opposite. We never withhold affection or connection from our children, no matter what they do, because that is a primary need. That is a fundamental survival need. And so it is important that we always provide affection and connection to our children, no matter what, that message that I love you no matter what gets through. And with that, we can rely on the message of nobody's perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. It takes courage to be imperfect, to show your imperfectness to the world, to share that imperfectness with everybody or with somebody, with anybody, right? And that mistakes are mistakes, and what everybody makes mistakes. And what matters is what we do after we make a mistake. So let's talk about what we do after we make a mistake. So if we can focus on solutions, that's really helpful because we can show kids that we can help solve problems. We can focus on solutions. I really like the word problem, excuse me, because I feel like kids understand that problems have solutions. And so I think that if we can focus on the word problem, identify what the problem is, help them identify it. So use your curiosity questions and find out what the problem is from their point of view. And then you can always share what your point of view of the problem is. And then brainstorm for some solutions. Now, we don't need to evaluate the solutions when we're brainstorming for them. We can simply brainstorm, and then we can come back and go through to make sure that we're on the same page, that those make sense. So when we go through them to evaluate them, we're going to make sure that they follow these 3 R's and an H for focusing on solutions. We want to make sure that the the solution is related. So for instance, if the problem was that a sibling stole a sibling stole the child's favorite toy, right? We want the solution to be related to that. We don't want the solution to be something like that other sibling doesn't get to go to that birthday party next week. Completely unrelated, right? So we need it to be related to the toy. We want it to be respectful. So the idea that I will just go steal something of his isn't respectful, right? So we want to cross anything like that off the list. Is it reasonable, right? So you took my favorite toy. I'm going to take 6 of your favorite toys for a week, and you're not going to get them back. It's not reasonable, right? It needs to be reasonable for the child, the person, like the situation, and also the other person who's involved, right? Not just me. It has to be reasonable for everybody involved. And then helpful, of course, it's nice if it's helpful, right? So what could we come up with in that situation that would be a helpful resolution? And maybe it's simply, we come up with an agreement that you're going to ask before you take my things. Okay. So then once you pick a solution that fits all 4 of those categories, then you can have the child try it out and report back to you. So if it's something that they can just try out right away and then report back, great. Sometimes these solutions need to take some time to try on, right? Because it's often not a singular incident, right? It's not something that's happened just once. It's something that's a repeat thing, or it's going to come up again. So if you have a situation like that, you can try it on for a week or so and then evaluate. And if it didn't work, you're going to start over at the beginning, come up with some new ideas and evaluate those. Okay. Second thing, we all make mistakes, and many of our reactions, like we talked about last week, could be considered mistakes, right? We lose our cool, we yell, we say mean things, we take things away, we react instead of respond. And so teaching kids and modeling this for them is really helpful. It's 4 steps to recover from a mistake. And so the first step is to really recognize that you've made a mistake. And that can be as simple as stopping what you're doing, right? Or just recognizing it within yourself. Oh, I really blew that. The second is taking responsibility for your mistake. So that's being accountable. That's saying out loud, I made a mistake, or oops, right? It's owning up to the fact that you've done something wrong, right? Third is to reconcile, and that's an apology step. I'm going to go over that in more detail next. But basically, it's just saying sorry for what you've done. And then the fourth is to make a plan so it doesn't happen again. Okay, and that could be you're focusing on solutions step. You can go back to that and use that as number 4, focusing on a solution that works for everybody. Okay. Now, it's really important that adults model this. Remember, kids learn from watching us. So if you are making mistakes, I do these steps every time I yell at my kids, every time. If I lose my cool and I yell, I go to them and I say, I'm sorry that I yelled, right? I take responsibility for it. Because when I take responsibility for my actions, when I take responsibility for the mistakes I make, they see what accountability looks like. They hear what taking responsibility sounds like, and they hear what an apology is supposed to be. Now, we try all the time to get our kids to apologize, don't we? Go say sorry. Go say sorry, right? But that's not how you learn how to apologize. We learn how to apologize when somebody apologizes to us properly. When we talk about apologizing in advance and give kids steps for doing it. When I work in classrooms, this is a lesson plan, and I go in and I teach kids about apologizing, and we practice and we play with some puppets, and then we have a chance to role play with each other, with other kids in the class. It's really effective and it's really helpful. Apologies are something that I teach a lot. I teach them to couples, I teach them to families, I teach them in classrooms, and I'm going to teach them now to you because apologies are so important. Um, it's really important that we have the proper language for an apology. Otherwise, it they don't work. They don't come off as an apology. Has anybody ever said to you, I'm sorry, but how did that feel? Right? It doesn't feel so good because they just said, I'm not really sorry, right? So an apology that includes a but isn't really an apology. Uh, an apology that includes an explanation of your behavior or defends your behavior, not an apology. Nope. As adults, we have been doing apologies wrong for a long time. Um, and I think it's really, really valuable to teach this skill and to practice it within your families. So I will send out a handout for apologies if to this group who has registered for this class. And anybody else who wants one, please just email me or comment or get in touch, okay? I've got a handout. And it explains more in more detail, but it has these 3 steps on it. So I want to go over them now. So the 3 steps for an apology is to simply say, I'm sorry for whatever you did, period. That's it. No defending, no explaining, no buts, nothing else. I am sorry for yelling, period. I will try not to do it again. Here is my plan for not doing it again, right? That's a great one. Can we work together to figure out how we can avoid this in the future? And then, will you accept my apology? That is a really important step. You need to ask, will you accept my apology? And we need to teach kids how to accept an apology because kids are very forgiving and they will say, that's okay, mommy, or that's all right, daddy. And my response is, no, it's not. It is not okay. We need to give kids the language so that they can accept an apology without condoning our behavior, without thinking that the way that we treated them or somebody else treated them was okay, without saying to somebody else, it's okay what you did that hurt me so much, right? We need to give them that language. So the language is, mommy, or whoever it is you're talking to, or they're talking to, thank you, I accept your apology. Or, thank you, I need to cool down, think about it, and I'll get back to you later. Because sometimes we're just not ready for an apology yet, right? We're not ready to make up. we're not ready to talk about it. And so that can simply be, I'm not ready to hear an apology yet, right? And that's okay. That's okay. It just means that the person apologizing will have to try again later, right? Now, again, I think it's really important that we have this language because language is so important, right? When we say it's okay, it basically says you can treat me like that again. And I'm a firm believer that we teach people how to treat us. And so if I'm saying it's okay, I'm teaching you that you can do that to me again. You can scream at me again. You can say bad things to me again. You can be late. You can waste my time, right? And that's not okay. I will not allow you to treat me that way. Whether you're my child or my friend or my partner, right? I need to be able to say, I accept your apology and I expect better. Yes? Okay. So I get pretty heated about apologies, people. Yeah. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I need to impress upon you at the moment. But I think that is all. I think you get the picture. Apologies are very important. We've been practicing this in our house for a few years now, and I have to say it is a beautiful way to come back together after being disconnected, after having a fight, after after misbehavior, or after whatever you want to call it. Right? It is normal for families to get into arguments. It's normal. It is normal for kids to misbehave. It is normal for us to fly off the handle sometimes. Those are all normal things. They're all mistakes, right? And having this system in place, this language in place for us to be able to come back together and repair our relationship after a mistake has been made that has disconnected us, when we're able to use mistakes as opportunities to learn and opportunities to connect, and when we're able to kind of bring this full circle, it feels really good. I feel like we're able to make our relationship better than it was before we had the blow up, that we're able to really learn from our mistakes, right? Which is a beautiful thing. Anyways, I will include a handout with the 4 R's, this one, for recovery from mistake, and a handout on apology. And I challenge you to sit down during a time that is calm, talk to your family about these steps and how to apologize properly. And then when something happens, I want you to try doing it and see how it feels. It might feel awkward at first because it's a new tool that you're learning, but I promise you that it will help bring you back together. It will help reconnect you, put you on the same page, make you feel closer, and help you all learn from your mistakes. Mm-hmm. Okay, that is all for today. So I want to say thank you very much for those who joined me live. If you're watching the replay, leave me a comment. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining in for the last 6 weeks, or catching all of the replays for the last 6 weeks. It's been a really great journey with all of you, and I've really enjoyed our discussions after. I am going to turn off the video now, so stick around to those people who are alive and we'll have discussion. Thank you.